Okie dokie. Well, folks, this is sort of an emergency hangout, if you want to call it that. Happened about a day ago, 24 hours. I can't remember the origin of it. Marvin, Marvin at Arkansas Beer Reviews, he was talking about, and I was talking about bourbon or Jack Daniels, some kind of way. It's like complicated because we're always discussing various things. So we were talking about this, and I was saying something about the tour I went on last week, and then this like, and it wasn't an ugly discussion. Okay, it was a friendly discussion, I thought. So I'm going to read the text. I invited them. I said, instead of all this typing back and forth, which is, gets irritating, I said, I'll invite you to do an online hangout. And so the topic is, this is the debate topic. Resolve, Jack Daniels is a bourbon according to United States government guidelines. And I'm taking the position that, yes, it is a bourbon according to United States government guidelines. So then the discussion exploded, and I put some links to Jack Daniels and the United States Tax and Trade Bureau website. And then I'm going to open this to online comments, and then I posted a link on Facebook, and many of you viewers are friends with me on Facebook. I could post a link on Google Plus, could I not? To join. But so I'd be curious to see what online commentators say, people watching it. I'll mute that because you'll have that feedback. Okay, so here's I invited Rod J Beer Ventures. Sup, dude? Says Brando Commando 1977. Well, we're talking about bourbon whiskey and Jack Daniels whiskey, and so it was Arkansas Beer Reviews, Marvin. And then Rod J joined in to the discussion, and then Ryan Spears, West Coast, joined in, and then Tom Mulvihill, Tom J. Mulvihill, the beer whisperer from Springfield, Missouri, joined. And I said, well, all this typing back and forth, so irritating, so I said, we'll talk about it online. So, and if they don't join, of course, they would lose the debate by default. But it doesn't really matter. I know I'm right already. I mean, I know I'm right. I wouldn't be doing the video if I thought I was wrong, would I? Well, I'll probably still do it just for the entertainment value. But so it started I don't know, the discussion. But then Arkansas Beer Reviews shared a link with me 19 hours ago. And he says, 5 rules that make it bourbon. Now, this is according to CNBC, not the U.S. government. The CEO of Maker's Mark offers insight into what separates bourbon from whiskey. Okay, well, that's nice that he did that. That is not the law. So I said, well, I'm going to go. And then we were arguing on another. This is not the link. We were arguing on another link. And then Marvin told me, well, look it up. I said, no, thanks. You look it up. You're telling me I'm wrong. You look it up. But I was curious. So I said, no, I know where to look because I had read this already, and I talked to William Kepley about it over there in North Carolina. So I knew where to go. I didn't have to really do much research just to find the link, you see. So it took a few minutes, but I found the link. So I'm going to back up, obviously what I'm saying. So I said, because they were saying this is their contention. They were using, my contention is from the legal viewpoint, okay? So their contention was, well, GQ magazine says such and such, and Vine or the CEO of Maker's Mark says something or whatever, and they filter it through charcoal, so that changes the flavor, so it's not a bourbon. And so I'll read some of the commentary, and you can look over there and yourself if you're able to access that. And it says, and I said, and the filtering method, charcoal or not, is irrelevant to it, according to these guidelines. Now, what are the guidelines for bourbon? Here's United States Tax and Trade Bureau's section called Spirits, Class Type class and type designation. Chapter 4, general features, identifies the labeled spirits as to its specific class and or class and type based on defined classes and types. So you have a class and a type. Class, the broad category distilled spirits, is divided under standards of identity into a number of general but defined classes. In other words, neutral spirits or alcohol, whiskey, etc. Type. Under most of the general classes are specific defined types of distilled spirits. In other words, vodka is the specific type of neutral spirits or alcohol. Is a specific type. Straight bourbon whiskey is a specific type of whiskey. Okay? So you've got the class and the type within the class. Most type names are sufficient as class and type designations. Some class names are sufficient as class and type designations. And then they give you a note. On succeeding pages is a chart that categorizes and very broadly defines all classes and most types of distilled spirits. Those classes and types that are sufficient as class and type designations are notated. And here's the Jack Daniel's website question. Frequently asked questions. Is Jack Daniel's a bourbon? Answer. And I put the link down there. Jack Daniel's is not a bourbon. It's a Tennessee whiskey. Jack Daniel's is dripped slowly, drop by drop, through 10 feet of firmly packed charcoal, and I went and saw that Tuesday, made from hard sugar maple, before going into new charred oak barrels for maturing. Okay. This special process gives Jack Daniel's Tennessee whiskey its rare smoothness. It's this extra step, charcoal mellowing. They don't call it aging, and I was on the tour, and that's for legal reasons of having to pay tax. If it's aged, there's a tax put on it. If it's mellowed, it's not taxed for that process. That makes Jack Daniel's a Tennessee whiskey. Take a look at our process section for more information about how Jack Daniel's is made. And, you can look at that. Okay, well, that's their contention. And I know Tennessee passed a law some years ago designating Tennessee whiskey as a style or whatever. Okay. But that would only apply to what? Tennessee. There are 49 other states and many territories like the Marshall Islands and Guam, and Tennessee is not going to legislate liquor in Guam. All right. So let's go to classes and types. There's a very nice chart here. Okay, whiskey, that's a class. General class definition: spirits distilled from a fermented mash of grain at less than 95% alcohol by volume, 190 proof, having the taste, aroma, and characteristics generally attributed to whiskey and bottled at not less than 40% alcohol by volume, 80 proof. If it's less than 80 proof, it's not whiskey. And it should have taste generally associated with whiskey. I'm drinking beer right now because I just felt like drinking beer instead of hard liquor. Okay. Now, they need to come on to this debate because I don't want them to have to, I'm sure people wouldn't mind drinking Old Crow, right? But I don't want these guys to have to eat Crow. That's not too pleasant, I don't think. All right, bourbon whiskey, here we go. Type, a type of whiskey, bourbon whiskey. Whiskey, here's the U.S. government's definition. Whiskey produced, now listen very carefully. Listen very carefully. What is bourbon whiskey according to who? Me? GQ magazine? According to a whiskey company like Brown-Forman? No. According to the United States government. They say it's, quote, whiskey produced in the United States at not exceeding 80% alcohol by volume, 160 proof, from a fermented mash of not less than 51% corn, and stored at not more than 62.5% alcohol by volume, 125 proof, in charred new oak containers. Now, I took the tour and I was listening very carefully. Very carefully. And the man was talking about this, what I just read to you, and the Jack Daniel's tour guide said, let's talk about how bourbon is made. So he went to this whole thing and he told us just what I told you. 51% corn at least, and it has to be in charred new oak barrels. And he said it doesn't have to be white oak, but that's what they choose. Same thing they told me at Barton Distilling and Buffalo Trace. Doesn't have to be any particular type of oak, but they prefer to use white oak because they find it gives it a better flavor. There's not a law. You could use swamp oak. You could use an oak tree from these swamps out here and char it. And as long as it's a new container, it doesn't even have to be a barrel, right? A container could be a square box. If you want to put it in that, probably leak, but whatever type of container you want to use, as long as it's charred. Yeah, let's see. I think somebody's joining here. Oh yeah. I was about to make you eat crow.
Oh, I don't eat crow, son.
Now I want everybody to get ready because Roger's about to get. Okay, but anyway, okay, so let me finish reading this. So, what are the parameters for bourbon whiskey according to the United States government? Not me. It has to be whiskey, the class of alcohol known as liquor known as whiskey, produced where? In the United States. That's the second parameter. At eating 80% alcohol by volume. Okay, that's the third parameter. From a fermented mash. Fourth parameter has to be a fermented mash of not less than 51% corn, fifth parameter, and stored at not more 5% alcohol by volume, sixth parameter, in charred new oak containers, seventh parameter, excuse me. So now there's some notes below, some reference notes. They're a little more specific. You know, okay, let's see. Right. Straight bourbon whiskey. Straight bourbon whiskey. Bourbon whiskey stored in charred new oak containers for 2 years or more. Now, when I was on the tour, the guy said 4 years, and I listened. I listened. And then he said, anybody got any questions? I said, you said it was 4 years, but isn't it the law? It's not 4. And he said, no, it's 4. I said, oh, because I was reading on the Tax and Trade Bureau website, they said 2. And then he paused and he thought a minute. He said, well, maybe it's 2. I haven't read that in a while. You could be right. So he said, I said, Now, I knew it. Well, I could have been wrong. I wasn't sitting there looking at the sheet, you know, but I just thought I remembered it saying 2. So then, but here it is, I'm reading it. Second point, second bullet point for straight bourbon whiskey. Straight bourbon whiskey may include mixtures of 2 or more straight bourbon whiskeys, provided all of the whiskeys are produced in the same state. So you can make a blend, but it has to be 2 straight ones. Or more, could be 20. It says or more. You could put 100, I suppose, as long as they're all from Kentucky or say Tennessee, whatever, or Hawaii. You can make bourbon whiskey in Hawaii. It has to be in the United States. I'm going to go down the types of whiskey. Bourbon, rye, wheat, malt, rye malt, corn, straight bourbon, straight rye, straight wheat whiskey, straight malt, straight rye malt, straight corn, straight whiskey, whiskey distilled from bourbon mash, whiskey distilled from rye mash, whiskey distilled from wheat mash, whiskey distilled from malt mash, whiskey distilled from rye malt mash, light whiskey, blended light whiskey or light whiskey, a blend, blended whiskey or whiskey, a blend, blended bourbon whiskey or bourbon whiskey, a blend, blended rye whiskey or rye whiskey, a blend, blended wheat whiskey or wheat whiskey, a blend, malt whiskey, a blend, blended rye malt whiskey or rye malt whiskey, a blend, or corn whiskey, a blend. A blend of straight whiskeys or blended straight whiskeys, a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys or blended straight bourbon whiskeys. Well, there's a little too many to read, but it really isn't that much more. But you notice if I read this whole list, there is one type that is not listed. Just in that type or that supposed type. And tell the audience what type we were talking about?
You want me to tell the audience?
The whole list, but there's
yeah, there's not one because it's not federally recognized yet.
Right. I say, I appreciate you joining. That's Roger, y'all. That's Roger Beer Ventures, y'all.
So that would be Tennessee whiskey that is not officially recognized as far as out on the federal level, is recognized as far as the state of Tennessee as being a type of alcohol as of 2013 when the governor signed it into law.
That's right.
But here's the thing. So as we debated earlier, which everybody couldn't see because we were debating on Facebook and stuff, and this comes from someone that's in a bourbon state of Kentucky and someone that's actually bartended in the liquor industry. As far as the bourbon and the Tennessee whiskey goes, and this is the point that I was making, is that it's the final product that is the difference. If you're going everything up to that point, you're making things the same similar way as the bourbon. But once you go to the charcoal filtering, that takes it to a different perspective. And that's not something you do with bourbon, which is how they designed it through the Lincoln system to be a Tennessee type whiskey. So the end product is where the difference takes place. So here in Kentucky, and you can ask people in Tennessee that have tasted bourbon and tasted Tennessee whiskey, you do taste differences in there. And that's due to a lot of times the filtering aspect. But
that was never.
If Jack Daniels never did the filtering and left it the way it is, then yeah, it would stay as considered to be more of a bourbon type alcohol.
Okay.
Or bourbon liquor.
All right. Hold on. We're going to proceed on, but hold on. I want to read a few of these comments. Ronnie S. says, cheers, mate. Hello, Ronnie. Cheers. Mr. Tank says, damn it, Ronald, you drinking again? Well, Mr. Tank, I'm not sleeping. People need to drink liquid. You will dehydrate. And I did not drink a lot today, Mr. Tank. You know what I drank today? 3 cups of coffee. I drank some of that blended whiskey for a video. And I drank light lager beer. So no, I'm not drinking again in that sense. Beerpedia says, hi, old friend Ron. Cheers, pal. Hey, Beerpedia. Talking to you. Craig Swinson says, why don't you and Maria do videos together anymore? Now, that's a good question. You're going to have to ask Maria that. Because on my end, we could do one today. Okay. S. Gredmond says, drink an original premium Weihen Stefano here. Try that one. Yes, and it's awesome. People know what they're doing, but I guess when you brew beer since 1040, you kind of get a handle on it. Wouldn't you say, Roger?
I would say so.
All right. Now, back to the fight. And I wish some of the other people would come on here. Now, Jeff Lyons said he couldn't join because he didn't have any Jack Daniels. I said, well, you don't need Jack Daniels to do the debate. I'm drinking beer here.
I haven't even got anything to drink yet. Yeah.
Where's Tom the Beer Whisperer?
I got to cut the grass still. So.
I cut mine Friday.
It's
Thank
so
you. Where's Arkansas Beer Reviews? Where's Ryan Speaker? Well, I know Ryan. Well, Ryan doesn't really do online hangouts.
Right.
But I'm glad you joined because then you don't lose by default. Hey. So, wait. Progressive Discussion says, hi, James P. Madonna. Put the link right there on Facebook. You can jump right in. But, James, you can jump right in. Well, here's my point, okay?
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple point. I was telling Arkansas Beer Reviews, Marvin, I said, look, obviously no one buys Jack Daniels and thinks, let me go buy bourbon.
Right.
Some whiskey. I mean, we all know that. Okay.
Right. Yeah, you know, like you said, if you were in a bar, you ordered a bourbon, a bartender's not going to usually go for Jack Daniels.
Right. You say, you worked in a bar, so you say,
so I would say like Woodford or even Jim Beam,
yeah,
Makers.
Here's Maker's Mark.
Yeah.
Evan Williams. Here's Jack Daniels Old Number 7. We all know this familiar bottle.
Right.
Daniels Number 7, which is sort of rare. It's just a younger, sort of inferior, but you can't get it anyway, pretty much. I couldn't tell. Honestly, I drank both and I couldn't really tell them apart.
Did you get the Gentleman Jack from them?
Tasted some of it, but I never bought it.
Okay.
It's just a diluted version of it, really, is all it is.
It's like twice over charcoal.
So it's like you took tea and then you use the tea bag a second time and you watered it down. Well, yeah, it's not going to be as strong. Okay. But the big point of contention from Marvin and you and well, all Tom said was Jay's never going to back down even if he's wrong. True, Mr. Tom. I will always back down if I'm wrong.
I never seen you defend the government position so strongly before.
Right, and you said I never seen Jay defend the government. I said I'm not defending the government per se. I'm just defending the law that I'm citing.
Right.
Yes, I would back down, Tom.
Hey, James.
Oh, there's James. So let me finish my point. James, I would back down, but I'm not. I know I'm not wrong. And so Marvin told me last night, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree. I said, no, what happened? I don't like that term, agree to disagree. That's like you just going to throw in the towel on the discussion. No.
That's like
I'm going to agree. I'm going to. Here's what I'll agree to do.
Compromise.
I will agree that I'm absolutely right. I will agree that I'm right. Because they were saying this, and then I'm going to let you talk, Rod, because I don't dominate. I try not to dominate. And I'm wearing a red shirt, which means I'm a communist. No, I'm just kidding. All right.
Hot looking girl could dominate me anytime.
Okay, we're gonna try to keep this on track. Okay, now that's why I didn't want to drink hard liquor, because it wouldn't stay on track. Okay, look. The point was this. Marvin and all of them were saying, well, since they charcoal filter it, then it's not a bourbon. No, I said no. They chose to call it Tennessee whiskey.
No.
Charcoal filtering it. No, all I said was by charcoal filtering it,
right.
It's simply a bourbon that is charcoal filtered. It's still a bourbon. The name is still a rose.
But it's not still a bourbon. And there's even one of the links I shared where they said they couldn't even use the bourbon name because of the filtering aspect of it. And in the end, now up to the filtering point, it's a bourbon. It's the same process. But when you change it over to the final product, you actually receive the Tennessee whiskey versus the bourbon whiskey. You know, it is a slight difference in there. And what you actually get, because for bourbon makers, you have it in the barrels. That's why bourbon makers call that process basically cheating the process, because they're actually doing something different to try to fake the aging of stuff. So it's a different style, and that's what changes it.
Wait a minute. There is nothing in any U.S. regulation that I just cited that discusses filtering whatsoever. And that's what I tried to tell Marvin. The filtering process is irrelevant. They like to call it in Tennessee at Jack Daniel's mellowing. It is irrelevant to the status of it being a bourbon. Okay, there's nothing on here that talks about aging except for the.
But that's not true. And that's like one of the pieces I said. And basically they said, well, the government's still behind some of the stuff too on what makes it a bourbon.
No, I'm reading right off the document. It has to be aged in new charred oak barrels for a minimum of 2 years to be straight bourbon.
Right.
That is the only requirement. That is filtered through charcoal is irrelevant to the discussion. That's all I was trying to tell people. That is irrelevant. There are other bourbons that are charcoal filtered. I can prove that.
But for Jack Daniel's and their process, I mean, that's why Jack Daniel's doesn't call it a bourbon on the final process. Up to that point, like you said, during the tour, where they called it like a bourbon, yeah, it was going through the bourbon process, and they switched it towards the end. And there's a distinction between the two. Like I said, it's a little different. It's kind of the traditional versus a non-traditional bourbon drinker. Like I said, I've been drinking bourbon over 20 plus years, and at no point would anybody ever, as a bourbon drinker traditionally, say, give me a bourbon and expect a Jack Daniel's, because the taste is not the same.
Any of that. I was never contending those things whatsoever.
I didn't say you did. I'm saying I'm just explaining to it's like a traditional versus a non-traditional sense. So it's kind of like if you look at it from the terms of someone, like I said, like a layman, and you're looking at just that definition, yeah, it actually can fit into what you were looking at. But if you've actually been out there and enjoying bourbon and actually drinking bourbon, you say, no, that's not correct, because based on what bourbon is and what it actually does and what Tennessee whiskey actually does, there is that difference. And like that last piece I shared talked about how any bourbon drinker or Tennessee whiskey drinker can taste that difference in there too. And that's, like I said, it's more traditional versus maybe a non-traditionalist.
I know, but what I was saying, I didn't care about any of that, because I said legally. My only point of contention was this: legally, according to the United States government, not personal perception, not marketing choices. Jack Daniel's chooses to call it a Tennessee whiskey marketing strategy, but according to the United States government, the law, not my personal opinion. What I perceive.
No, I know what you're saying. I mean, if they had to stick it somewhere, they're going to stick it in bourbon. But it's like if you had a soda and you had an orange juice and you had one category beverage, you're sticking both in beverage, although they taste totally different.
Okay, look.
That's going to still encompass it, both of them.
Look, listen.
Is he going to let James talk?
It's only going to take me 1 minute to say what I got to say. What we're talking about is whiskey. Okay. Team, Maker's Mark, it's all whiskey. Okay. One's arguing that point. Now we get down to the type of whiskey, bourbon whiskey. And the point of contention was this: is that old number 7, or in this case, the green label, the number 7, is it a bourbon according to the United States government and the law? And the answer is very simple. Yes, it is absolutely a bourbon.
Yeah, initially started saying, is it a bourbon whiskey? And people were saying no. But under the law, if they have to put it somewhere, it would go under a bourbon.
In the law, that prevents them from calling it a bourbon. If Jack Daniel's, and I mean Brown-Forman, that's the parent company, if they decided this afternoon and said, you know what? We watched Louisiana Beer Reviews, Ronald. He's right. We're going to start calling it Jack Daniel's bourbon. There would be nothing legally to prevent that, except maybe within the state of Tennessee. But in the other 49 states and territories, there would be nothing to prevent them from calling it bourbon, because guess what? It is a straight whiskey. And I stand by the contention. I know I'm right. Now, I have proof here, and then I'm going to let James talk. Here's Jim Beam. You see this? You can barely find this. I found this in Kentucky.
Jim Beam's a bourbon.
Wait a minute.
It meets the definition. That's why you can use the bourbon definition on our label.
Wait a minute.
Your minute is up.
I know, I'm sorry.
James is on the clock.
He kept interrupting me. That's my defense. I went to Frankfort, Kentucky, and I bought this bottle, even though they said it wasn't sold there, but there it was. I bought it for $14.99. Okay, Jim Beam, Choice, Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, age 5 years. Okay, no problem. Now their point, Marvin and Roger and all them, they said, oh, well, once it's charcoal filtered, then it's no longer a bourbon. What does it say on this bottle? Charcoal filtered. This is a special type of Jim Beam. It is charcoal filtered. Now, but it's charcoal filtered. They put this through the charcoal application. Okay? This is not a regular Jim Beam. You can barely find it. It's charcoal filtered. It's still a bourbon. Basically my trump card, if you want to use the term trump. But that was my trump card. Okay, James, you got the floor.
Okay. Hopefully I have a little bit more elevation than the floor. But my name is James P. Madonna from northeastern New Jersey. Hello, everyone.
Hey, how you doing?
All right. Since I am a bourbon beginner, a bourbon neophyte, I have a stupid question, and then I have a statement. The stupid question is, okay, is bourbon more or less a corn whiskey? That's
yes.
And the answer is yes?
Yeah, 51%, yeah.
More or less. Okay.
It's the same as moonshine, really. Okay, second.
Second statement is that I notice that with all or most fermented beverages, it seems like oak is the wood of choice.
Yes.
The fermentation process. Oak barrels. What that reason, why that is. I mean, oak is a fantastic. It's a very impressive tree. Traditionally, the Vikings worshipped it, and blah blah blah. But there's something about oak that makes.
Well, I know a lot of distilleries like the oak because of the wood flavor that gets into the alcohol. So it seems to do a good job as it ferments.
Ages, you mean?
Oak is the wood of choice.
Oh, ages, yeah, ages, yeah.
Yeah, as it ages, the oak, it gives it a nice that oaky vanilla flavor.
Oaky vanilla.
And the government agrees. Yeah, oaky vanilla. The government agrees with that because they require that if you want to call it a bourbon, it has to be aged in the oak. Can be any type of oak. Could be but they say no, they want to use white oak. That's the company's choice. Now here's what Travis Harper says. I have Jack Daniel's green label and black label. Nowhere on the bottle does it say bourbon, just whiskey. Well, that's right. Of course. Right. The company chooses not to use the term bourbon. It chose to use that term tomorrow. They could do it and it would be no legal repercussions except perhaps within the state of Tennessee. Travis says
with the company, as you mentioned earlier, they actually say they don't consider it bourbon too on their website.
That's their choice. Now, they're not the law.
Go ahead.
Jack Daniel's is not the law, okay? They're not the law. So they're actually wrong. I mean, I'm sorry, but they can come on. You can join.
It doesn't got a tour. You're wrong. You're bourbon.
Want to join? They can join. Okay, but they're not because they know I'm right. Now, Travis says, however, I got Evan Williams' green label right on the front of this bottle. It has Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Bourbon is a type of whiskey, Travis. So, yeah, of course. It's like if you had Mexicorn, it's still a type of corn. It's just with those little spices, So, well, yeah, of course.
It's a massive difference, yeah.
Now, the charred oak the charred oak barrel, does that mean they get in there with a blowtorch and just singe it a bit?
Burn it. I have a photo. I have a photo coming up on Alcohol Legs in the next few days. It's going to show the girl holding up a stave barrel. They take those slats of wood and they put them together and make a barrel, and it shows where it's burnt. Outside, yes, that's correct.
Oh, they do it before the barrel is produced, or they period.
No, I think they took a barrel apart and they took that piece out to show the tourists. But
okay.
Yeah, they build a barrel and then they go in there with the blowtorch and they singe the inside, they char it, which gives it that nice marshmallow, and you char it over the open flame. It's so good. And Burger King always claimed that although you notice they've dropped that term. They don't say that anymore, charbroiled. They say what do they say at Burger King now? Flame broiled.
Yeah.
I heard they
just say charbroiled.
They use artificial liquid smoke flavor. That's what I heard.
Oh my goodness, I hate to know that. I would hate that to be true, but I wouldn't be stunned.
Well, corporate America is capable of any evil. You know that.
Oh, what are you saying? Okay, Beerpedia says how to join, Ron. You could join Beerpedia. I'll put a link right here. Beerpedia was my friend on Facebook, but I don't know. I can't keep up. People use all these different fake names, and so you can't.
Aliases?
Aliases, yeah. So people will tell me, hey, don't you know who I am? Yeah, I'm Jack Jones on Facebook, and I'm Mimi Guy on Google Plus, and I'm
Jack
Cast Iron Pot on this other site. And I said, I can't keep up with all these names.
Yeah, like Red Rooster. I would call myself Jack Sprat just to play around, but Facebook won't let you. How did they get away with it? I tried to use a funny alias name, and Facebook wouldn't allow me.
They used to allow it, but they kind of cracked down on that. Although, I got to say this, Arkansas Beer Review still uses that name. And everybody knows that's not a name, it's Marvin. So, but somehow Facebook didn't catch it that he was using Arkansas Beer Reviews as his actual name. How they thought that was a name, I don't know. I mean, I don't care if he does it. I don't run Facebook. It doesn't matter to me. I just use my regular name, you know. Well, people can track you down and find, well, they're going to find out who you are anyway. You know, people.
Yeah. So if I was, an enthusiast of intoxicating liquors and I wanted to use the name Elmer Futterbooze, they wouldn't let me do that.
They might.
School you out.
You know, chicken or something, that's not a name. You know, they know Connecticut chicken's not a name. Oh, Beerpedia, man, nice to meet you. There you are.
Hi, Ron. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you? You're over there in Greece, right?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Greetings from Greece.
Oh, they
Hellenic Republic.
A long time ago.
Hellenic
Guys, we're
Republic.
drinking some good beers from Omnipolo.
Oh.
Yeah,
Polo, good beer. Good beer.
Omnipolo here.
Oh,
Hey,
nice.
y'all.
I think I've had that one. I've had that one before. That's pretty good.
Beerpedia used to be friends with me, if I'm not mistaken, when we used to have the old website, The Beer and Me, right?
Right.
But that
We know
failed.
each
They don't-
other about 10 years.
Well, I want to ask you something, Beerpedia.
Right.
About this bourbon whiskey, Jack Daniels
About 10 years, yeah.
conversation we're having. What do you say?
I can hear you, sorry.
Oh, turn down your volume because I'm hearing some feedback.
I end up doing Sunday mega bag.
Yeah, I
Turn
saw
down
the
your
conversation.
volume and then talk to us. Well,
About Jack Daniels. And according to U.S. government, is it confirmed that it's bourbon?
yes.
Mhm.
Oh,
US government.
oh,
According to the United States government, Beerpedia, a bourbon tomorrow if the company chose to do it.
Oh, I
They say
see.
it's Tennessee whiskey. Well, guess what? It is whiskey. Tennessee. So there's no.
But you gotta do the Lincoln style to get the Tennessee whiskey label. You can't just say you're from Tennessee and distill. You have to go through the whole Lincoln distilling process. Yeah.
Yeah, but you could say whiskey from Tennessee. They couldn't stop you from saying that.
Well, I don't know. It'd be interesting. Somebody probably try to sue over it or something. They'd say it was too close. But it is
Whiskey, not Tennessee.
Oh no,
whiskey.
I'm just saying somebody would still try to do it. It's kind of like if you made a similarity like Star Wars, George Lucas would try to see you type thing.
Whiskey from Tennessee, you see.
Yeah, I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing there, playing on the words. I see you.
spin doctor, like politicians. Spin
Yeah,
doctor.
spin it around a little bit.
Spin doctor.
Right.
I'm just saying.
I want to know.
But your topic is kind of funny because on the internet, it's a very hot topic out there. It seems if you go on the internet and you Google is Jack Daniels bourbon, there's a lot of stuff that comes up about it.
People that want to fight with each other over it. I mean, like physically have fist fights. Well, I
like
viewers to tell us what they think. Am I right? Back me up is the law.
Well, you have an interpretation of the law.
Incorrect.
So the government, they interpret it that way. But whiskey drinkers interpret, and whiskey drinkers may interpret it differently.
Wait. Have to back me up is the law.
Oh.
Pursuant to the law. Agreed with the law necessarily.
Right.
I'm saying that what the law says is that this could be considered a bourbon and it is a bourbon according to the law, because this is made with at least 51% corn. 2 years was actually aged 4 years to 5 years, maybe even 6 years, because they don't have a specific time on it. They just release it when they find it has the correct taste. 2 charred oak barrels, and it follows the alcohol level guidelines. You know, it's 80 proof. It's distilled and bottled at the correct proof. So there's nothing whatsoever not make it a Tennessee whiskey. And
no, I would say technically it meets all the definition, but.
And that was what the big fight was about, because they said, well, since it's charcoal mellowed, that makes it not a bourbon. Excuse me. Here's Jim Beam and his charcoal, which is another term for mellowing, whatever you want to call it. And it's still a bourbon, so.
Right, but I think it's at the end. Again, technically, up to that filtering process, it meets what it's supposed to do, but you're not aging it maybe the same way you would as a bourbon. Like, for instance, looking on one of these things here, like one of the people out here online said, no, it is not a bourbon. You cannot carbon charcoal filter bourbon. I realize that it is not in the general requirements for bourbon, but I can assure you it is true. The TTB updates their guidelines over the years without actually changing the official description you'll find on the internet. So how actual bourbon drinkers may look at it may not be the same as how the government may be doing it, especially if the government's behind updating anything.
Wait a minute. Let's just say, for the sake of argument, that in 2016, the United States government updated their guidelines of bourbon.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if they didn't bother to update their website, that's their problem. And secondly, if anybody's telling me I'm wrong, the only documents people gave me was, well, GQ magazine said. Well, GQ magazine is not the law.
It wasn't just a GQ magazine; it was research that was shown in the piece. Just like the other links, it showed research from other pieces, like
But
about
they
the myths about bourbon piece that we were talking about.
I read that
from liquor.com.
Nothing in those documents contention that Jack Daniels was legally a bourbon. None of them. I mean, we could be talking about Cheese Whiz for all of that.
Oh my God! No! That is not real cheese. It's processed like cheese food. Velveeta and Cheese Whiz. I can't hear it.
If you get a Philly cheesesteak, they use Cheese Whiz.
Those cheap bastards. They don't want to use. They don't want to use real cheese in Philly. They want to use.
There's no provolone. It's Cheese Whiz.
Provolone. I want the real deal. I want real cheese. Like Arby's says, we got the meat. Remember that commercial? Yeah. We got the cheese. Oh, speaking of food, I want to say something to the Greek gentleman. I love the spinach pie with the feta cheese and the phyllo dough, and I love the way you prepare the lamb. I love the Greek lamb and the spinach pie. The moussaka is the eggplant, right?
You talking about Eros?
You spell it right.
Gyros is delicious. I love it when they do it right. When they give you a lot of meat, when they're not cheap bastards, you know, and they skimp on the meat. I like to have a lot of lamb hanging out of the gyro.
Yeah.
Speaking of cheap bastards, we were talking about something else. Philly cheesesteak. No, before that, I think.
And the other thing with Jack Daniels, when they do their filtering process, they do it before it goes into barrels, and that's not part of making bourbon. So maybe that's a part of it too. I'm just saying there's different views. Like I said, I've been drinking bourbon over 20-something years, and I just think there's a difference on how bourbon drinkers actually look at it versus people that may not have been as astute with it.
That was never my contention. All I said was whether you filtered before you put it in the barrel, whether you filtered after you put it in the barrel, whether it's charcoal filtered, whether it's not charcoal filtered.
Right.
Irrelevant to the conversation, because I said, according to the U.S. guidelines, filtering isn't even mentioned in the regulations. It's irrelevant. And then they said, well, let's agree to disagree. I said, I'm not going to agree to disagree. Why would I agree to disagree? I'm 100% right.
But I think
you almost said
the way you look at it.
You must talk like Elmer Fudd.
No, wait.
White. What screwing
Wait,
what?
no, he said, and then he said, well, it's the way you look at it. I said, wait a minute, I could make a contention that France is in Southern Africa, but who would believe it? The contention, but nobody would believe it because it would be insanity, you know. So anyway, I think, I wish other people who were talking about this online had joined, but they probably didn't want to face the music, and I can understand that. I would be intimidated myself. I wouldn't want to come on here and defend a position when I knew I was wrong.
They have keyboard courage. Keyboard courage.
I don't think it's a right or wrong, though. I think it's a difference of opinion.
No, that is where we got into the argument. It's not a difference of opinion.
I think you can say, what did you say on the thing? You said, well, maybe Tennessee whiskey should be something. You said, what did you say?
I think
Feel
it's
free to read it because I have no.
I think it's better to say it is that Tennessee whiskey is a type of bourbon whiskey.
You could say that Tennessee whiskey is a type of bourbon whiskey. If you want to,
I would say it's more an offshoot of bourbon whiskey than a type because it changes it again on the filtering process. But I would say it's an offshoot of bourbon because up to that filtering, you're following everything the same.
It's still
And then
a
your
bourbon.
end product is slightly different than what it would be if it was strictly bourbon. If you put down a bottle of Maker's next to Jack, it's not the same same things.
It's not the same brand.
Well, no,
It's not even from
not even the same taste or anything. Because if you put a bourbon next to a Tennessee, not even just those two, but any bourbon next to a Tennessee, you have different tastes. You made an offshoot. You basically
No.
you have.
You just-
That's what you've done.
No. You've only made a type of bourbon. Type of bourbon. Okay. We have lizards that live around here. They're called anoles, and they wander around. They're
Yeah.
like a type of iguana. They
I
wander
know
around.
the anals very well. I'm an exotic pet enthusiast.
It's still a lizard.
It's a lizard.
You cannot make the contention. You cannot make the contention that an anole is not a lizard because it's different from other lizards. And this is what I'm trying to say. This is opinions, or it's how you feel about it, or we'd have to agree to disagree, and it's all how you look at it. No, it's not all how you look at it. The objective reality is legally whether it's filtered, charcoal or not. And that's, I have the documents to back it up. It's not an opinion. This would be
The government's never wrong.
I have a question for Rod.
You're bringing up straw man arguments.
I'm just saying the government's never wrong. What was the question?
Mr. Rod Jones.
Yes, sir.
Is Knob Creek made in Tennessee or not? Or it's not made in Tennessee?
No, Kentucky with Knob Creek. That's one of the bourbons here. So I actually live in Kentucky. So we're like I said, we're a bourbon state. So
yeah, Knob Creek is
that's a real good bourbon.
Yeah, I'm impressed. I hear Louisville is famous for smoked mutton. Not to change the subject.
I have not heard Louisville smoked mutton before. Interesting. But actually, I grew up in South Jersey, but I've been out here for a while since the 90s.
Oh, yeah. I'm South Jersey, you said?
Yeah, South Jersey, down by Cherry Hill.
Oh, so it's suburb of Philadelphia?
Yeah, like 20 minutes outside Philly.
You got Camden. You got what's that? Mount Laurel.
Mount Laurel. Yeah, my mom lives in Mount Laurel and Morristown and all that area. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, Morristown, New Jersey. I'm not that far from Morristown.
Yeah. Well, either Morristown or Morristown, because Morristown's by Mount Laurel.
You know, there's
Morristown too.
There's a funny place in New Jersey called Peapack. Believe it or not.
Ah, heard of that.
I just learned it last year. I didn't realize it. But anyway, that's why you knew about the Philly cheesesteaks.
Yeah, I do miss the Wawas too.
Yeah, Wawas and
I know they have sand. I know they have Sand Hills, the Sand Hill area. But look, I love geography.
You gonna read more of your comments, Jerry?
Yeah, Knob Creek,
and I would like
to good company. Okay.
hang out one day just on New Jersey. I actually did geography of New Jersey because I love geography. But Tom, Mulvihill, the beer whisperer, was saying, he was saying, oh, Ron, he was saying Jay never backs down. Even if you pin him in a corner, he's never going to back down, even if he's wrong. Well, that's not correct. If I'm wrong, I'll be the first to admit it. But I wasn't backed into a corner, and I wasn't what do you call it? I wasn't shown to be incorrect. What I said was an objective reality. It's legally a bourbon. Do I think it's a great bourbon? If you want to use that terminology, okay, I guess. I think it's all right. Fanatical about it, saying that it's garbage and trash. I would not go along with that. The whole point about, well, it tastes this way and the other thing tastes that way, that's irrelevant to the legal definition. And this filtered is also irrelevant to the legal definition. Now let's look at some of the comments.
I would say though, if I'm going to a bourbon party, I'm not bringing Jack Daniels.
I'd recommend doing that.
But why not? You said it's bourbon.
I mean, you could do it if you want to face it. Get into a long discussion, like you could do it if you wanted to spark a discussion.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, read your comments.
S. Gradmon says agreed. And absolute garbage. Adam Kennedy says y'all are streaming but not drinking. I was drinking. I drank a whole can of Busch beer. Adam Kennedy says no argument here. Nobody cares when you drink it. Why would? Should you drink liquor at an older age? John Redbarley says yes if you enjoy it.
But if you go too old on like some of the whiskeys, you'll get more wood than you want in there though too. Like with the bourbons.
I thought he meant should you drink whiskey when you're an old man.
I think he meant barrel if you was older like bourbon. Maybe he did. If that's the case, drink till you die.
What bottle are you drinking?
What?
Show us.
Word. Bird.
Safe word.
Yeah. Word bird.
Everybody needs a safe word.
Where is it from?
UK.
Word is no word.
No word.
Oh, it's from the United Kingdom.
UK. Yeah. Chokeberry IPA.
Oh, an IPA?
Chokeberry IPA.
How is it?
I'll try it.
Okay, before we shut this off, he's going to try this IPA and he's going to tell us what he thinks. Bird.
Oh, looks good. Yeah, it's nice. Yeah.
Nice glass.
Yeah, I was put down.
Orange haze color.
Nice. Yeah.
Let me taste it.
I drink Yingling.
Yingling?
Yeah.
Yeah, we get that. We don't get it in Kentucky, but we get it in Ohio now and Indiana. So I'm running the border, so I can pick that up when I want to. I usually like their black and tan.
Yeah, it's reasonable. Lord Chesterfield Ale is good too.
I've heard that. I haven't had that one.
I've had it, but I can't get it here.
Oh, you can't get it down there?
You like it, Beerpedia?
Porter.
A little grainy.
You like it?
How do you like it?
Grainy.
Huh?
A little grainy.
Yeah, like the porter's good, Ron, too. The Yingling porter's not bad.
Yeah, the porters, I've had that before. That's not bad.
I never got to try that.
Difference between a porter and a stout. They use a cocoa in the porter?
No, a stout is a type of porter. We got into that argument as well. Travis Harper says Jack Daniels will always be my first pick out of any spirits in the market. And hey, if that's what you like, right?
Hey, if you like it, drink it, right? So,
like it, drink it. If you like Yingling, drink it. If you like Jack Daniels, drink it. If you like Busch beer, which I don't really like Bush beer that much, honestly. I just drank it because I wanted the can for my can collection.
Dr. Professor Dave Coulter says Yingling is garbage. Hey, the price is good. It's reasonable. It's a craft beer. It's America's oldest brewery. That's about all I could say.
Oh, I don't agree with Dr. Dave on that. I don't think it's garbage. No.
No, it's a lot
not,
of beers worse than
it's not the greatest thing, but it's not garbage. You know what Dr. Dave was drinking today?
What?
Hmm.
Oh, I love Pilsner Urquell.
No, it's not bad, but I would say
Pilsner Urquell.
I would say Yingling is just as good as Pilsner Urquell is.
How's that? Yeah. Well, that's another fight.
Yeah, I like the price of Yingling too.
Sometimes it's $5.99 a 6-pack around here.
Yeah.
Okay, so just because I won this debate doesn't mean I'm going to win the rest.
I wouldn't say you actually won it, though.
You know what's great about bourbon and domestic and craft beer is there's such a cornucopia of distilleries and microbreweries now in the United States. That every corner of this country has at least a few to several.
Golden age. It's the golden age of drinking, you know. Well,
people are under a lot of stress in America. They need it.
Look, I know. And I always like to talk about geography, politics, but that's a dicey subject. You start talking about politics, people get angry, and then you'll notice your Facebook count dropped.
So that's why you gotta stick your finger in their face and say, hey, you, I'm talking to you. You hear me?
I mean, mine tends to go up. I don't even accept a lot of friend requests now because I don't know who they are.
Oh, I get a lot of that too, because the next thing you know, they're trying to sell sunglasses on your Facebook page. You run into that. But I'm not talking about that, Raji. I'm talking about people that they're a big shot, and like John Madonna said they're a keyboard warrior. You know, they talking dog. You know, start talking politics, and the next thing you know, well, I'm not talking to you. Well, hell, I mean, excuse me. Well, heck, you wanted to be a big shot. Can't all agree on politics. When did that rule get written that we all have to agree on politics? I didn't know that was a rule.
Yeah. You're gonna find out on Facebook from time to time.
Do I live in the United States? Do I live in Romania or White Russia? I didn't know that was a rule.
White Russia, that's vodka and cream, and half, isn't it?
Oh no, you know, it's a country, Belarus.
Oh, the country.
The drink.
Half and half.
Yeah, cream and vodka.
And Kahlua. New Jersey is shaped like.
Well,
that was a favorite of the Big Lebowski.
New Jersey.
And I want to.
Go ahead.
I want to thank Beerpedia. I want to thank Beerpedia for joining us from Hellenic Republic, Greece. James from the Empire of New Jersey.
Yeah, New Jersey is shaped like a Latino woman. It's very curvaceous and hourglass-like. You know, it's got, but the part facing the Delaware River is like where her ass is like sticking out, like she's like presenting it. That's how New Jersey is shaped.
I never thought of it. I always thought of it as like an S.
An S.
And then we've got Rajay from the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
Got the bubble butt going.
Not me, New Jersey.
From the colony of Louisiana. All right. Well, the U.S. colony of Louisiana. So anyway, thanks for joining us, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more fights coming up.
Hey, could I play Zorba the Greek for our Greek friend on trumpet?
If you could do it in half a minute.
All right, that's it.
That was great internet material right there. That was like basically the greatest thing I've ever heard. Okay, so Zorba the Greek. Mutton, folks.